Today we're getting into part 3 of our brand new series, You're Not Really Agile If. I can't remember it. Well, let's get straight into it.
Alright. Yeah.
The first one that we wanted to talk about is you're not really agile if you think agile is actually going to solve all of your organization's problems.
Alright. Yeah.
So let's just take a step back. Now, we always say to people that Agile does a fabulous job of unearthing the issues in the organization, unearthing anything that is slowing down, getting value to our customers, unearthing all the red tapes, just digging up a lot of things for us to understand exactly what is hindering, what is slowing us down from making a difference in our users' life. Right, Jan? Now, the reason we say that is because Agile hinges on transparency. If as an organization, we have decided that we are going to become agile, a part of it has to be with being open about what it is that needs to be done. It's about involving all the persons that are necessary. And we're talking about your stakeholders, your customers. Remember, looking at the Agile manifesto, one of the things is that we're supposed to be working with our stakeholders. We're supposed to be collaborating with them. I mean, you want to make sure that as a team, you are helping to challenge your organization towards becoming better at being transparent, just being open to having those conversations. So it requires a lot of conversations, a lot of collaboration, a lot of just
Humility, vulnerability, because at the end of the day, when your teams come to you with a new change that they're recommending, or if they're putting towards you a situation where they need your decision-making power to make a real difference in how they're able to work and deliver, it requires you now as a C-level executive to be humble and vulnerable enough to say, okay, help me to understand what exactly you're trying to achieve and how can I assist you in getting towards your goal. There are some times when if you knock on the door, I guess, too hard, you're going to be met with resistance. But if it is that you are able to paint a picture, tell a story, and you can, tangibly speak to what the outcomes are or what the difficulties are and why it's so difficult and how long it's taking you to get towards the finish line because you have to be, jumping over so many hurdles to get out the door. I think sometimes that is helpful. And then also having somebody else who can help champion your cause is also important, because we know that there are difficult people out there. For whatever reason, they choose to be difficult, and you have to still work with them. You have to still work around them. And so you have to be creative. And if it is, that means that you have to find somebody else who's able to champion your cause, somebody who has the ear of that particular stakeholder, tap into that. Into that relationship.
I mean, while you were talking, Jan, what came to mind too is while Agile will unearth what the opportunities are, the next part that we need to do as an organization is to start actually looking at the opportunities. And it doesn't mean that, for example, if we're realizing that it's taking too long to get value to our customers and there are a number of obstacles, that we're going to tackle all of them at once. Just like everything else, we are trying to make sure there's incremental improvements. You're going to find that first issue that you can start moving out the way, assess if you're seeing a difference based on whatever it is that we have tried, and then you make another step. So it's not 15 problems on earth. Let us figure out what that one solution is for that one problem. No, is look at what it is. Perhaps you can look at what the greatest challenge is, or perhaps the simplest challenge now that we can address to have that quick win. And then you make a change, see if it actually results in a difference, and then you can move from there.
And I think an important component to also bear in mind if you're going to take Nikki's approach is to make sure that as you're going along, you're managing the risk, you're assessing the risk, you're understanding, okay, we've made this change. How has this impacted the organization? Have we, introduced a new vulnerability? Have we introduced a new problem? Have we introduced a new opportunity for something to go wrong? It's okay, even if it does. It just means that it's another thing that you just have to make sure that you're thinking about all the pieces of the puzzle and how they fit together, just to make sure that at the end of the day, yes, you're effecting change, but you're also strengthening the organization. You're not creating a new vulnerable spot.
And I guess it ties back to where we started in terms of that transparency. So we've identified the opportunities. We're taking a step to make some adjustments. So also involve all the persons who need to be involved. So if it's your entire staff who have a vested interest in this, let them understand if it's something that you can put on a board somewhere, whatever it is. A lot of us are still working partly remote, some of us in office. Figure out what it is, but also keep that transparency going and be open to have the conversations, and also be open to say, hey, we tried this, it didn't work, so let's figure out something else. And that also ties back into just being open to being vulnerable.
Yeah. I think too, sometimes there's a challenge when, something doesn't work and somebody, people just normally just assume if it didn't work the first time, then that's it. It doesn't work, but sometimes it just means you have to get a little bit more creative. And sometimes you have to probably just think about the problem in a more simple way, where you're simplifying whatever that solution possibly could be, and you're taking it a step at a time. Don't give up the first time it fails. Failure is really just an opportunity to learn.
Totally agree, Sean. So what's the next one that we wanted to head into?
Okay, so the next one I want to talk about today is you're not really agile if there is no trust or transparency in your organization.
All right. Yeah.
So, it is easy sometimes for organizations to say, hey, we're going agile. Let's spin up a team. We need a scrum master, product owner. Let's get some developers in a room. And you believe, okay, we're now agile. No, you're not. You just have a team, a group of people, really, because if they're people who don't know each other, they're just a group of people who you've just given a task to work together, hopefully. I think what is important is to really empower your teams. And it's something we spoke about in part 2. You have to really empower your teams that they feel confident, they feel that they have what it takes to get the job done. If you do not trust your team members to do that, then really and truly, you are not really giving them the environment, creating that environment that they need to truly thrive.
So, another thing that came to mind, Sean, is when you're thinking about transparency, like my mind automatically went to sprint reviews. So I know we said that the team comes together. It's not just we're a team now and we're doing stand-ups and we're doing sprint planning and we're doing sprint reviews, etc. If we don't understand the reason behind those things, those are conversations, and that's just a natural part of the development. But when you're thinking about the transparency as well, and you're thinking about something like the sprint review, that is a perfect opportunity to help shed light, show your stakeholders, show your customers, show anybody. That's a key part of the transparency, because if as teams, our job is to continuously deliver value, we have to be engaging with not only the end users, but also the stakeholders who have a vested interest. And so knowing that a team is comfortable and even looks forward to a sprint review would say a lot about an organization, just to hear, so just to get some feedback from those stakeholders, and just to bring it even a step further, to have a kind of culture where you don't have to even wait for a sprint review. Your exec doesn't feel anyway knocking on your door and come in and say, hey guys, what are you up to? And somebody jumps into a demo just to say, hey, this is what we have to showcase, and you get that continuous feedback. It's fabulous, but it takes work. It's not something that will happen overnight. If we're used to operating in silos and we're closed over here and we're working away for 1 year until end, and then the big reveal for persons to know what is actually coming out of our little corner, then it's going to take some getting used to start inviting persons in, to start hearing and accepting that feedback. Because as much as we talk about continuous feedback, it's not always easy to hear feedback, especially if it's not what you're looking for. Especially if it's something that's talking about, hey, well, this could be a little better. That takes training. You have to retrain how you think about feedback. But point is, transparency, it takes work. Trust, it takes work. But when it comes together and everybody in your organization understands what we're all trying to achieve, in terms of we're just all trying to be great people, all trying to change the world, all trying to make our customers' life far better. And we can understand and talk about together what are the obstacles, how we're going to fix them, have something that's present and visible to anybody to address at any time and just talk through. works wonders.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes too, if we are really, understanding of some of the ceremonies that are in Agile and Scrum, we will understand that it presents us with such unique opportunities. Mm-hmm. And seeing that you're talking about the sprint reviews, one of the things that came to mind is sometimes when you have your sprint review, you're showing what you have so far, you're getting their feedback. It is so like a light bulb getting turned on when you hear somebody gives their perspective you didn't even consider. Mm-hmm. Or if they highlight something that, if you do this, then it's going to have an impact somewhere else in your organization. And then everybody has some time to plan for it. Mm-hmm. You can decide if you're going to move forward, if the impact is not so great or significant, or if there's an easy remedy for it. But then if it's something that's going to create havoc somewhere else in your organization, it now gives you an opportunity to say, okay, what is a better way that we could work together to do this? It's such an easier, smoother transition into, making change and delivering value when you have your stakeholders' input. And when you are able to now deliver with such confidence, because you know that everybody who needs to know about what's happening, they are aware and they've made plans and they've made the changes on their back end or their front end or wherever. They've made the necessary changes so that you can now feel rest assured that you can move ahead with confidence and with surety that you're fine.
Perfect.
Yeah. So one last point about this whole trust and transparency thing I wanted to make is the fact that there can be no transparency if there's no trust. And I say that to say, if it is that your teams do not feel comfortable, they do not feel safe to say, okay, this is my problem, this is the issue, then they're always going to want to hide it, and sometimes it will end up prolonging a problem unnecessarily just because there is such fear, there is such doubt, there is such unsurety. I know there's no such word, but work with people. But you want to create that environment where your team members, as C-level executives, you want your team members to feel okay coming to you to say, this is a problem, I know it's not good, but guess what? It's an opportunity for us to work together to figure out a solution and keep this ball moving. So
yeah, and I mean, trust goes both ways. So you want your teams to trust you enough to have those open conversations. And as managers, leaders, we also need to trust our teams to say, hey, you are actually empowered to get this done. Figure it out. If you figured it out and it's perhaps not the best solution, let's figure something else out. But trust goes both ways. Yeah. So the next one we wanted to look at is you're not really agile if you are not inspecting and adapting.
All right. Yeah.
So it's two things. We have to consistently look at how we're working. Like, gone are the days when we are aiming for perfection. So as agile teams, what you want to do is usually to make sure that we are delivering the simplest thing. And from understanding what the simplest thing, delivering that in the hands of our users, getting feedback, then we iterate, then we send out our enhancements, all that beautiful stuff. But there's always an opportunity to figure out, okay, is there something, some way, somehow that we can improve our process? We have 5 steps in a process. Is there a way that we can get around 2 steps in the process? Is there a way as a team in terms of how we're working and how we're going through our sprints? Is there an opportunity to improve something, even something as simple as the board that we're using to visualize the work? Is there an opportunity to explore some other tools that would help make our work easier? Is there an opportunity for us to bring in our stakeholders earlier into the conversations? There's just always an opportunity.
Yeah, that's so true, Nikki. And I think, it's so easy, if we're going to be speaking very frankly, for teams to assume that, say the retrospective not really important. We have too much things to do, say how much work left to do. And you're like, let's skip the retro. We don't need it this week. And I want to empower Scrum Masters in particular, like, stand your ground. You know the importance of stopping and inspecting and adapting. And as the owner of the Scrum process, you have to take that firm position to say there's no way we're going to skip this important ceremony, because there's always an opportunity to change. There's always an opportunity to try something different. And you cannot miss out on those opportunities, because you'll be surprised that, you make one small change and all of a sudden everything starts clicking. And it doesn't matter if you are a new team or a mature team. It is important that you set aside the time to really inspect, adapt, and then just keep moving forward.
Yeah, I guess I just want to reiterate the adapt part. So it's not just the inspect and say, oh, this could be better, oh, and then do nothing about it. It's to then figure out as a team, as an organization, what else do we want to try? And that's why even when you're thinking about the retrospectives, a key part of it is also to document some of your action items, have owners so that we can have those changes actually implemented and we're seeing them through. And after you've implemented them as well, you need to inspect if they're working. So it's a continuous cycle. It's not one-off. Okay, we have retro every 2 weeks and we'll just talk about this and then we move on. No, we have to keep each other accountable because that's the only way that the change will actually come. And I love to say to my team, hey, even though based on our sprint cadence, it's every 2 weeks, we don't have to wait until 2 weeks to try something. If we're working and we realize, oh, there's an opportunity here and we can change this now or try this now, let's do it. There's nothing that's stopping us from doing things like those. It's all about continuous improvement. So let's figure out how we can do it better.
Yeah. And I think an important part I'd want to add to what you've said, Nikki, is the fact that sometimes it is hard if it is that you have 2 or 3 action items to say, okay, these are the decisions we've taken. These are the things we want to try. Like if it's too hard to monitor the 2 and 3, choose one. And you guys just really and truly put all your collective efforts towards implementing that one so that you can see if it changes anything and you can reap benefits if there are benefits to be reaped.
Yeah.
Additionally, Nikki, we all know, say, especially when you have a deadline working towards, it's easy to become hamsters on a wheel. And therefore, we have no time for anything but coding and testing and pushing and I'm busy. Okay, like no. Yes, we agree that the deadline is important, but what if stopping and having a half an hour conversation changes something? And it is a critical change that we never knew we needed, that all of a sudden, the sun bursts through the dark clouds and we can see something again, okay? Working with people. But I'm just saying that, it is important. And that's why we're stressing the fact today that it's important. It's important for you to really have conversations with each other. And, sometimes it doesn't have to be conversations about what went well, what didn't go well. Sometimes it becomes which one of these user stories was our favorite user story this sprint? Which one did we dread the most and why? Just because you want to see, okay, how do we write more user stories that people like? How do we write more user stories, less user stories that people dread, or they find it difficult or hard? Is it that we needed to break that story up into smaller pieces? Did we need to do a spike so that the work didn't feel so onerous? Have those conversations. You just never know what the small thing is, the smallest value you'd unlock that really, sometimes when you have a boulder on a hill, yes, working with people, there's a little pebble hole in the boulder, and once you move like a pebble, the boulder just start run down the hill. Yeah, you just never know. The small pebble, look for it. It's there.
I mean, yeah, so we saw a post recently from a thought leader in the Agile space, and he was pretty much saying that retrospectives are really the only event that the Agile manifesto, the Agile principles actually speak about. That's another conversation for another day. But we're raising this because, yes, it's important, people, for us to and have those conversations. Always a better way. There's always something to try, and there's always just a small thing or a big thing that we can work to improve on together. So let's just always keep that at the back of our minds. Even when, as Shan said, we're hammering towards those deadlines, let's make the time. And the challenges for us Scrum Masters, we know it can become a little bit tricky sometimes because we're trying to make sure our teams have that balance and we're trying to make sure we have those conversations, and sometimes people get tired, but it's a valuable event. It's something that we need.
Yeah.
So even if it's not according to your sprint cadence and you can factor it even throughout your sprints, have the conversation.
Yeah. So the last one we're going to share in part 3 of You're Not Really Agile is you're not really agile if the primary measure of success for an agile team is being able to hit a deadline.
All right. Yeah.
So if you don't mind, Sean, I'd like to start on this one. Now, if time is your primary measure of success, that's an indicator that as an organization, we need to be having some serious conversations. Now, if we're taking it a step back and we're even thinking about what the Agile Manifesto says, one of the values is that the primary measure of progress is our delivery of working software. Ta-da! Now, the Agile Manifesto also speaks a lot about the need to build in quality in anything that we're doing. Now, I know that we can quickly say the Agile Manifesto, it's just dealing with software development, but I'm certain you'd have heard on countless occasions where we're saying, hey, Agile is not only applicable to the IT industry, we can apply it in several other fields. The point, though, is that if we're working to, again, change our customers' lives, change our end users' lives, then making sure that what we're building is the right thing in the right way, it's what our customers expect, it's what also our stakeholders are looking for, because as a business, it's a business. That's the reality of it. We're trying to ensure that we're giving customer value, which will in turn give us that business value. Using time as that primary constraint raises several red flags if it's a case where teams are being forced to adhere to a timeline, and especially thinking about the whole need for trust and transparency. If your teams are speaking to you to say, hey, this feels very tight based on what we're coming up on, because another point, it's knowledge work. So we start with the little that we know. As we go deeper, we uncover more things. And when you're uncovering, then you're trying to figure out how best do we solve this. At the same time, balancing to make sure that we're building the thing the right way and it's what our customers need. That takes time. If we're starting to look at a project and the first thing that we're going to determine without any knowledge of what is really required is the timeline, we need to pause and start having some conversation.
Yeah, Nikki, great points. Completely agree. And I think the time issue becomes even more detrimental when you're thinking about the organization also telling you what exactly they want in a way where it's a big bang. And I know we've spoken about this before, but we've seen it time and time again where you're given a timeline and you're not even being given the opportunity to iteratively deliver. You're given the opportunity to deliver by this date, and we want the world on a gold platter. Okay, team, go ahead and go get us that world on a gold platter now. And that's so unfair. And it becomes very challenging for a scrum master, for a product owner to kind of push back to say, hey, okay, we can hit your timeline, but instead of giving you A, B, C, D, E, F, G to Z, we're going to give you A and B. Okay. And then now if you give us another, whatever timeline you want to come up with, team, you say, okay, we can then give you C, D, and E. And you have that conversation now, because a lot of this whole agile delivery and agile team working with C-level executives and stakeholders, it becomes a negotiation. It becomes a conversation. It becomes a, help me to understand what you need. And then let me go back and figure out with the team how we're going to get it done, what we will need to get it done. And then we can tell you how, what is our recommended approach to delivering. But so often organizations are just so gung-ho on hit this timeline because agile means fast, we're gonna go do it quick. And no, agile means it's knowledge work. We're gonna start with a small amount of information, and as we go along, as Nikki said, we're gonna discover new unknowns, we're gonna discover new problems, we're gonna discover new opportunities. But when those things come up, we need time to figure it out. We need time to come up with solutions. We need time to decide, okay, we're at a fork in the road. Are we going left or are we going right? It becomes another conversation.
And as you mentioned, the unknowns, it may be work in the favor. It may be that what we had anticipated, it's not as complex and it's very simple and we can turn that around in no time. But on the flip side too, it may be a little more. And it may also require us, again, along the line of inspecting and adapting, looking back at what we had initially planned to deliver and perhaps having that conversation, that negotiation to say, okay, so ideally we won't be able to deliver everything, but this is what is practical and this will still make a difference based on the changes or what is that we're trying to implement. But it's all a conversation.
Yeah.
But if we are just stuck on a timeline and there's no kind of conversation, no negotiation,
no wiggle room, no breathing room.
Right, because even as teams, we need to have some kind of time to think. So we are getting into the belly of the beast and we're trying to understand the work as well. It doesn't mean that for every single solitary second of the day, we are going to be knee deep in coding. I'm certain your developers will tell you that part of when they come up with issues, a part of it is going out to see if anybody else has encountered something similar, what they had tried, and also figuring out, okay, what will work in our context. And those things take time.
Yeah, and sometimes it even means that everybody else have to stop what they're doing so we can all have a conversation about this issue that we found. And all those things, I think it says, takes time. But we also have to be realistic that the fact that, you know, when you sometimes set these deadlines and you're asking for the world on a gold platter, it forces the team to know, develop a pace that is not sustainable. And come on, people, we all know what burnout feels like. We know what it looks like. And if you're not careful, you're going to start losing team members because nobody wants to work in an unhealthy environment where they feel like they're either being stifled or they're just drained. They have nothing to give. Can you imagine finishing your workday and you have nothing left to offer your family? It's like you literally get up from your desk, you take a shower, and you're just in bed. You just can't move. You just feel unmotivated. You just feel depressed. Come on, people. That's not what we want for our people. That's not what Agile is about. It's not about creating an unhealthy environment where people feel drained and sucked dry. So let's be realistic. Let us find that balance between delivering value within a particular time, but it becomes a conversation. It should not be mandated, and it should be flexible, especially if it is that you know that this particular thing may be new, it may be outdated. You just don't know. Whatever the circumstances is, it's knowledge work. It requires conversations. It requires thinking. It requires some level of planning. It requires execution. You just have to give your team that breathing room to get it done.
Yeah, and even when you mention flexible, Sean, because while you're speaking, one thing that jumped out to me as well is there's a difference between being mandated in terms of being given a timeline as opposed to as the team being, again, empowered to sit and based on whatever it is that you have done as part of your discovery, as part of your assessment in terms of your initial understanding, to say, hey, we think this is possible within that time. And as we mentioned, as you start uncovering new things, having that open and trusting environment to say, hey, I know we said in a month, but based on how we have gone through the first week, it feels like we may need 6 weeks instead. And yes, it's fine if you have that relationship where like, I was looking forward to it, but okay, 2 more weeks because we understand again the domain in which we're working. Things come up and we're trying to adjust as we go along to make sure it's the best decision that we're making now, just based on the information that we have at hand.
Yeah, sometimes you have to paint the picture to ask them, do you just want me to deliver something? Or do you want me to deliver something that really works? And that works really well. So guys, those are the 4 things we have for part 3. We are excited about the feedback we've received so far. I mean, we've gotten a lot of personal DMs, personal messages, personal calls about this series, and we're happy that you guys are enjoying it. And if it is that you have anything that you have seen that whether it's be in your organization or just a general thought sometimes that pops into your head, hey, hit us up, let us know what it is and let us talk about it. So we want to highlight some things too from other persons in the community. So thank you so much for watching this video and for being a part of our community. Bye.
All right. Yeah.
So you're not really agile if you think that agile is going to solve all of your organization's problems.
You can please come into the frame before you drop out. I might give space. My give space was shining now. You don't want it to shine in.
So, the intro is in the intro.
So yeah, let's just make the point now.
We can't put it
And you just try to tell them, say, time my image of success.
Okay.
I hit a run.
And
a button. Oh, yeah, skip.
Oh, yeah.
Alright, so.
Completely agree, Shan.
I completely agree. Yeah, but I'm not necessary right now. If it's a more thing for me, get more inspiration. And no, not included that in the blue.
Not even going on the blue.